Hello everyone, and welcome to the Demon Hunter Guide. If you are just tuning in here, I'm doing things a little differently this expansion. When the rated season starts, I will be making a battleground and rated battleground video, as well as a solo shuffle and arena video. So a lot of content from me, but I know that's not good enough because we have a lot of questions right now. With the new talent reworks and the new hero talents and all of these crazy new builds to try, you need some information right now to get you into PvP and started before the season even lands, which is a long time out from now. So I got you covered. I will be making PvP starter guides for every spec that I believe I can convey the information well enough and contribute enough to the conversation that you will be as strong as you possibly can be in a PvP environment. That's my promise. So we now dive into Demon Hunter, a logical next step after DK. And it's very cool. It's very fun. It's got some flavor. So we'll start out with talents. And you'll see my class fantasy builds here. If you haven't been here yet, I am naming all my builds with a little bit of flavor to help you ask questions about them in my stream or in my YouTube comments, because you'll be like, hey, a blazebreaker build, do you still run this, that, and the other thing? And I'll know exactly which build you're talking about. Plus, it makes me smile because it's fun to do. So, blazebreaker, the first talent build we'll talk about. It's because there's a lot of fire in here and essence break and a lot of burst damage, and it just sounded like it fit the theme. Blazebreaker with the fel-scarred hero talents. So, let's start with the meat of the build, which always starts in the spec talent tree. There is a lot of, like all specs, some stuff that you just need in the top of the tree that are present in every single build. Your core abilities, your core modifiers, like First Blood for Blade Dance. There is actually some choice nodes pretty early on that I believe are technically choices. And one that is absolutely never a choice. So let's talk about that one first, get it out of the way. You got Demon Blades up here. You will never talent out of this in any situation for any reason. That's because your globals are very impactful as Demon Hunter, and you can almost be global starved, especially early in the expansion when you don't have a lot of haste. So you would never want to add another global by going the Insatiable Hunger, where your generator now is a global. You would want to remove that global by making it passive and contribute to all your auto attacks. This is just a no-brainer, absolutely guaranteed for PvP. Every build will always run Demon Blades. Easy. Okay. So now you have two choice nodes that I actually believe are choice nodes. Mortal Dance, if you're playing on a team without a Mortal Strike, like you provide the Mortal Strike, so no warriors, no hunters, you would always run Mortal Dance because it is going to dwarf the other talent in every possible way. You need a Mortal Strike on your team. But let's say you're playing with an Arms Warrior. The Mortal Strike effects don't stack. They replace each other if they're the same type of Mortal Strike effect. So yours replaces his, and then his replaces yours. It doesn't do anything to have both, as long as you're on the same target. And if there's a situation where you guys are in comms, and you know that he's going to be on the right guy, then you could technically, very rarely, you could run something like Deflecting Dance, where it gives you a ton of survivability for free, because you didn't need the Mortal Strike effect. But your Mortal Strike effect is unique in that it's AoE on Blade Dance and very easily applied AoE. So it's very rare that you'll ever find yourself in a situation where you can talent out of it. But if you can, Deflecting Dance is a nice option. This one, I'm probably on the minority side. I think almost everybody runs Netherwalk, but I'd like to make a case for Desperate Instincts. It makes your blur, your wall, even stronger. Really good against rot pressure or things that can get through your dodge, or just if you're getting unlucky with your dodge chance. But it's even better than that, because one of the best ways that Demon Hunter can die is in a stun. And with Desperate Instincts, this will automatically proc. Now, of course, it'll proc at low health, 35%. But if you have a healer on your team coming out of CC and this procs and gives you a bigger wall because of the passive, and it saves you, it reduces the cooldown by half. So not only did it save you from that go, it also makes your blur even better, because now you've got the bigger passive damage reduction and you've got a shorter cooldown on it, which allows you to blur again, aggressively even, to keep yourself moving. So against those long stuns like a rogue, this is a really interesting option. I think most people still run Netherwalk because it's just such a fantastic panic button where it's just like, no matter what, you're not going to die here, but you have to be out of stun to use it. So if you don't have your trinket, Netherwalk is kind of meaningless in that go. So that's just my argument. I think they're both fantastic options, and I know I'm in the minority, and that's my argument for why Desperate Instincts could be really useful for a lot of people, especially in a solo shuffle environment, where you don't have as much synergies and maybe they overlap something with Netherwalk, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of merit to trying out Desperate Instincts. So there you go. Then you have a bunch more very locked in stuff. Chaotic Transformation is just key. It just resets your biggest cooldowns. I-Beam and Blade Dance. These are monster buttons that do a ton of damage and also get you into Metamorphosis from the demonic talents. So all of this fantastic stuff. And that's kind of like the middle of the tray, right? But even right here at this line, there's already choices. Like people are running all sorts of different stuff, which is really cool. So now let me make you my arguments for what I'm running. So of course you get the blade dance stuff. Everybody's going to run the blade dance stuff. Dancing with Fate and Trail of Ruin. This just makes your biggest button do even more damage, and you love that. Then there's the Throw Glaive package, and this was a absolute no-brainer before. But then they removed the PvP talent that increased your throw glaive damage by so much and made it elemental, that this is no longer an absolute no-brainer. I'm still running it because the alternative, the left side of the tree, which you can see I'm avoiding, requires you to build your gear in a certain way that makes you feel extremely sluggish. So a little spoiler into the gear section. We'll talk about it soon, I promise. But when you go down this left side, you get to this crit-centered talent, kind of forcing you into a crit mastery build. But the problem with a crit mastery build is you're missing a stat there, haste. And the build is so unfathomably sluggish. But there's another problem. You have a lot of cooldown reset stuff from fel-scarred, and you have all of these globals coming back all the time. So at any time when you have the double charge, Immo Aura, and no haste at all, you could find yourself with 9 buttons that you want to press, but no haste to get through all of them. So you would just effectively be wasting all of these cooldowns coming back up because you can't press them because you can only press 1 button at a time, right? And your globals are so sluggish and your class plays like it's in molasses. It's very difficult for me to personally recommend that because I've had so much success with the alternative, which is haste mastery in this build in front of you right now. So it's a little spoiler into the gear section, but I know that it's worth talking about when we talk about throw glaive specifically, because throw glaive used to be such a staple. It was like 30% of your damage, all the modifiers that it had. And now it's not quite as much of a staple, so you could find yourself maybe dropping some things here and there for the left side of the tree. I'm just explaining as to why I'm not personally doing that, because you become global starved, and each button that you want to press, you simply can't. You can't find the time to do it, especially if you get CC'd. You come out of CC with 12 buttons in front of you, and you're like, what the heck am I supposed to do with this? So that effectively answers this entire portion. Because what this is throw glaive, blade dance, throw glaive, right? Immo Aura, throw glaive. All right, so that's all of that. It's just a package that makes these buttons all just have as many modifiers, as many secondary effects as you possibly can. So here's some interesting choices. Looks can kill, I-beam, guaranteed critical strikes. If you run a no crit build, this actually gets the most value that you can possibly give it, right? The more crit chance you have, the less value this has, because you don't get any value from it being even more guaranteed critical strike, right? That doesn't do anything. So when you have a no crit build, this is just kind of like a 45% damage mod on your I-beam. And that's pretty cool, because you start with 11% crit baseline. That's pretty cool, because I-beam recently got buffed for PvE, which trickles down into PvP, and then I-beam does an enormous amount of damage. So it also is a go setter. With the next talent, which is Furious Gaze, I-beam finishes channeling, you get 10% haste. This used to be hard to get off because you could kick I-beam, but now you can't. I-beam is unkickable, which means you can finish channeling this unless they stun it, but if you're getting stunned, it doesn't really matter. I mean, they're using stuns on you, that's going to happen, but a lot of the times you can set up, you can like you're so mobile and so bouncy, you could just get a full I-beam off from a distance, they can't really disrupt it, then that sets up your metamorphosis, did a huge chunk of damage because of looks can kill, gave you some fury because of blind fury, we'll get to in a second, and then gave you 10% haste for the duration. And like I said, puts you into meta, so you really want that haste because you have all these impactful globals and you want to spend them all at the same time because you're in metamorphosis and you got extra haste now to do that. So it's like this go setup. It's this go generator. Every time you press I-beam, you feel like not only are you doing damage with the I-beam press, but you're setting up for future damage with your secondary stats and your metamorphosis. So it's really cool. And it keeps getting furthered by this next one, Inner Demon. When you enter Demon form, your next Chaos Strike does a huge chunk of damage. And guess what? I-beam gets you into Demon form, then you get the Chaos Strike. Because you're fast globals, you get into Blade Dance, into Chaos Strike, and then you have an Inner Demon on top of that. So again, even more of this go is all passively fueled by this entire middle row of talents. It's very, very cool. The reason I only go 1 out of 2 in Blind Fury is because you actually have a ton of Fury gem. The fel-scarred, which we'll talk about very soon, I promise, it generates a lot of fury by resetting Immo and some other talents in there. Even the passive at the very beginning just says it generates fury right here. Passive, metamorphosis, blah, 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 fury. So you have a lot of fury gem, but having a tiny bit of fury gen and a little bit of extra I-beam damage is really nice for that whole ghost setting up sort of deal. So You don't need 2 out of 2, but 1 out of 2 is actually kind of nice because it just makes sure that every time you press I-beam, you're starting with a little bit of Fury, which is pretty cool. Definitely don't need 2 out of 2. It's just overkill. Now we have a guaranteed choice, which is Chaotic Disposition at any means necessary. This will probably be present in every single Demon Hunter build you've ever found, and if it's not present, you'd probably have to ask them why. Your Mastery is huge for Demon Hunter. It's just a huge burst and sustain modifier, just is chaos damage, and this makes everything chaos damage. So now everything is chaos damage. All elemental damage is chaos damage, which is incredible because now everything scales with your mastery, and your mastery is even better because it also increases your movement speed from this talent on the left side. So it's like this mobility burst sustain button all in one, and you would always grab this. It even has synergy with all the hero talents because if they do any elemental damage, then they turn into chaos damage, and now they scale with your mastery, blowing them even further out of proportion. Even burst options like the Hunt turn into chaos damage from nature damage, and that's just incredible. So that one's a no-brainer, but then what I love is Cycle of Hatred and Shattered Destiny. This gives you so much more frequent goes, like I was talking about with that whole I-beam spiel that I went on. Well, now all of your main rotation reduces the cooldown of I-beam, giving you even more access to those meta goes, and then those same meta goes that are so valuable get extended by spending Fury, which you can do more of because your haste is generated every time you go into meta because of the Furious Gaze. So it's this compounding engine of damage where you're constantly in meta, getting all the benefits from meta. That's survivability, that's haste, that's bigger damage buttons. And you are resetting it as much as possible and extending it as much as possible. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this middle row of talents. I think they all compound perfectly on each other. I think they give you sustain. I think they make your pressure enormous and your healing fantastic. And it's really hard to beat that. When you go on the left side, you're sluggish and your goes are infrequent and it feels really, really bad to me. So that is why I'm not recommending it. And you can try it out for yourself and see if I'm right. Now there's one other thing I kind of stuffed in here. It's very funny. I grabbed Glaive Tempest randomly and one of Blind Fury. And honestly, I really am happy with these decisions. Glaive Tempest is just one more global. You're going to have the Fury for it because you have so much Fury gen from the hero talents, like I said. And it cleaves a lot. And when you're setting up goes, AoE stun goes with your Chaos Nova AoE stun, pressing Glaive Tempest, especially with your mastery buff from the Sigil Flame, which is right here. I keep talking about fel-scarred, but I'll go over it soon. You press that Sigil Flame, get a huge mastery buff, and then of course Glaive Tempest is chaos damage, so it scales with your mastery, and then you've got AoE stun, Glaive Tempest, and it's just this very, very, very powerful AoE burst amount of option. But it's a short cooldown. You know what else is a short cooldown? Your I-beam with Cycle of Hatred. So this engine of damage that we've now shown to be incredible is only amplified by one more button that is active and present in every single one of those. Yeah, it's fantastic. So I'm really high on this build, and I really hope that even if there's some other builds that play around with some other talents, you listen to my reasoning here, and maybe I've convinced you that this might be the option for you. So that's Blazebreaker, and it is only benefited immensely by the fel-scarred hero talent tree. This demonsurge effect that effectively outlines the entirety of the hero talents will be your top damage every game. So you'll just know that fel-scarred is good because you'll look there and you'll be like, oh, that's my top damage every game. Fantastic. It scales up in BGs, so if you're in your BG, it's going to be your top damage every BG. So... and it really is kind of all passive play. You don't have to worry about it. It's just going to feed into your rotation. What you effectively want to do is you want to get that I-beam meta first. You don't want to just jump in there and Metamorphosis. You want to get that I-beam meta first. You want to use those empowered abilities, inducing these demon surges that are going to do tons of damage, and then meta, and then use all your new empowered abilities, which will each proc a demon surge on their own, doing nuclear damage. Do you have to think about anything? No, because you want to use those abilities. They're good abilities, but now they just do more. They just do more things when you press them. You also get that passive Fury generation. You're going to get an extra movement speed buff, which is fantastic because you're so mobile and you can just be the most unpeelable guy. Demon Surge buff. Extra Leech is really nice because your pad is so high with this build, and trust me, I've played a lot of BGs and I do a lot of pad, which means this ends up being a lot of extra healing. Here's that cooldown reset I was talking about now when meta is activated. Not just I-beam and Blade Dancer reset from Chaotic Transformation, but now Immo and Sigil Flame is reset. And Sigil Flame seems kind of lackluster until you remember the Student of Suffering thing I was talking about, giving you 21.6% mastery and a ton of Fury Gen. And I promised there would be Fury Gen in this hero talents, and I'm not disappointing. That is another Fury Gen while giving you your best stat and a ton of it that is reset when you go into your most impactful cooldown. That's pretty cool. Maximum Fury increase is just awesome because you have so much Fury gen that now you can not worry about just hitting cap over and over and wasting it all. So anytime you're going through a period of huge Fury gen, like when you press Sigil of Flame and go into I-Beam, instead of just overcapping the entire time, you'll actually be able to use this Untethered Fury. Fantastic talent. This just makes it so the rare times you're not in demon form, you still have a little bit of damage, allowing you to finish people off. And then final, this is the Metamorphosis that increases the effectiveness of all those reset abilities, I-Beam, Immo Aura, Sigil of Flame, and of course you want to press Sigil of Flame for the buff, and it does a ton of damage, and it's buffed by your tree, and it just buffs your Demon Surge damage even further. So all of this is near perfectly, I'm not trying to be an egomaniac, but perfectly synergistic. It all feeds into each other in every possible way. It's like a system, a perfect system, right? It doesn't leave anything out that's kind of just worthless. So yeah, I'm pretty high in the build. I don't know. Try it and play it in BGs right now. And when you're top damage, as long as you play it properly, I will happily take a screenshot in the Discord, and I will be super proud of you because that means you've mastered the power of blazebreaker. It's kind of nerdy to say that, but playing World of Warcraft, so let's go on to glaiveweaver. All focused around your throw glaive ability, so of course you're going to run that throw glaive package because of the aldrachi reaver's glaive ability. So let's talk about the main tree first of all. Everything is the same because I love all of that stuff. It's a perfect self-running engine that works with every Demon Hunter kit. The engine is still here all the way down from the middle. I talked about all of these I-Beam stuff all the way down to Shattered Destiny. And the right is still here because it's Blade Dance and Throw Glaive, and something that says Glaiveweaver obviously wants Throw Glaive mods, and then Chaotic Disposition at any means necessary. The only things you change in the main tree are, instead of some of this immo stuff, since you don't have the empowered immo or the reset immo from the other hero talents, fel-scarred, you don't really need any immo damage because you don't really do any immo damage. So you can instead fully go into this left line, which allows you to get down to Chaos Theory, and I'm pretty high on Chaos Theory. Since you have no critical strike chance, any critical strike chance you get is just a little bit of extra damage on whatever ability it says, because you weren't going to crit anyway, probably. And then you get a lot of Fury gen, and then you get Isolated Prey. And Isolated Prey is really powerful in PvP because it gives you, we already talked about how good I-Beam was for damage. So now if you're single target I-Beaming, it's just like this terrifying burst option that gets you into meta, which is crazy. But also if you lock in a single target stun on a healer, like let's say you swap to a healer and you Chaos Nova them, they're expecting a 3-second stun, well, they're going to get a 5-second stun. And a 5-second stun is long. That's kidney, right? That is a kidney shot. So that is really crazy for a Demon Hunter to have access to. So Isolated Prey and Chaos Theory are these bizarre niche picks that are just really, really high value, especially in PvP, where they're just, you got that I-Beam generator to get you into meta, then you press Blade Dance, which generates a Chaos Theory, and then you press Chaos Strike, and that, or it's going to be called Annihilation. And that 1-2 punch of, well, I guess it's 1-2-3 punch of I-Beam, Blade Dance, Chaos Strike is really, really tough to deal with and almost active all the time, right? You could just get your I-Beam back with the Cycle of Hatred. And yeah, it's an incredible little mini engine as well. You do lose the MO stuff, which is why I don't recommend it for the fel-scarred hero talents, but I do recommend it from aldrachi reaver, which puts a lot more emphasis away from Immo Aura and into your abilities again. What this whole Reaver's Glaive, Art of the Glaive thing is just about rotating your abilities, which you're already going to do anyway, based on the little Chaos Theory interaction where you Blade Dance, then Annihilation, then Blade Dance, where you kind of alternate it back and forth, because Blade Dance is highest priority because it's your biggest damage button, but it has a cooldown, while Annihilation is just a Fury cost. So you can go like Blade Dance, Annihilation, then Annihilation, Blade Dance, and it alternates already, which allows you to already get value out of two mechanics. One, the enhanced ability you cast, which is just enhanced by Reaver's Glaive when this procs. The first one deals 10% increased damage, the second one deals 20% increased damage. So if you front load your damage into the second ability, that's probably going to be your Chaos Theory buffed Chaos Strike. But also, you have this effect where, I gotta find it. There we go. Fury of the Aldrachi, where you're throwing additional glaive slashes if you Chaos Strike first and then Blade Dance second. So it's this weird dynamic, and I don't think you actually have to pay too much attention to it. What I think you have to do is alternate your abilities. Kind of pretend you're a Frosty K for a little while. If Frosty K has pressed the same ability twice in a row, you Frost Strike to generate a killing machine for Obliterate, then you use that Obliterate, then you Howling Blast, then you Obliterate, right? But if you just pressed Howling Blast over and over, you wouldn't do anything. So this is a very similar thing. You're not going to just press Annihilation over and over and never ignore all your other abilities. You're going to do that alternating thing. You're going to buff your Blade Dance by pressing Chaos Strike, and then you're going to Blade Dance. And then the Blade Dance is going to buff your next Chaos Strike, and then that Chaos Strike. So what you could do is you can make it a habit. You see Reaver's Glaive glow, right? And it glows on your bar. So it's just like, ooh, pretty, right? And it turns into this icon right here. I promise. It's Reaver's Glaive glow icon like this. You could Reaver's Glaive, then you could throw out Annihilation to juice up the Fury of Eldrachi Blade Dance. Then you could I-beam Blade Dance. Now you get the Blade Dance to fire off all these glaive slashes, and then it also juices up your next Annihilation. So it's like Annihilation, I-beam, Blade Dance, Annihilation, right? And you just kind of go in a triangle like that, or then start to alternate. Pretty confusing, I know. But a lot of this is going to glow on your screen. I'll do a rotation section at the end to kind of reinforce it in. But what you have here is a set of hero talents that buffs your abilities. Right? It just buffs your main abilities. I kept saying words over and over and over, and you're probably going to have to watch it 6 times and slow it down and play it back in reverse and slow motion and enhance, right? But effectively, I said all the buttons of your rotation. There they are on your scale. Look how many buttons. I don't even really have any buttons on my bars, right? 2, 3, 4. And if you alternate through these buttons and understand what you could probably have a weak aura for Reaver's Glaive if you need it, but it is going to glow. If you understand what this ability is juicing and when to start alternating your abilities, you'll do maximum damage because that's all it's doing. Chaos Strike to Reaver's Glaive, cast 6 slashes. Vengeful Retreat 2 times is just really good for the Glimpse PvP talent. We'll talk about that soon. This just says increased damage by 7% that can be extended if cast after Blade Dance to 14%. So again, you can throw in a Blade Dance and then Chaos Strike and then get a 14% increased damage to them. Wow, that's absolutely ridiculous. Then you get this whole Soul Fragment shattering in the middle row, which is really important because that is how you get Reaver's Glaive in the first place. All of the soul shattering mechanics where you can purge and get souls or just shatter and get souls from the various hero talents passives, you're going to get a healing for them, get a little fury from them, and then you're going to empower your Reaver's Glaive. That's how it works. And what's fantastic about that is that gives you a ton of extra self-healing from shattering more souls, and self-healing allows you to stay in better, and it's a great engine of self-sustain. You just have mods, right? I mean, that's just a mod. Chaos Strike deals more damage. Throw Glaive deals more damage. And then consuming a fragment makes your next Chaos Strike deal more damage. And you can get all your soul fragments in by pressing Fellblade, so you kind of have like a vengeance way of sucking in souls for self-healing and for all of these mods to go off. Finally, after you get the enhancements on the passive we talked about with the alternating thing, you now just get a damage, healing, and attack speed mod. So all of that was a lot of noise, and I know that. I'm sorry that I couldn't explain it very concisely. It's not a very concise treat. It's a lot of alternating things to get all these buffs, and maybe some people will master it with weak auras, or maybe you'll just alternate your buttons like you do as a Frosty K and be super happy. But all of that ends up just juicing up all of your main rotation and finishing off with an Avatar-esque buff of 20% damage and healing and 15% attack speed. So the DH rotation and sustained pressure is already really high. So if you have an entire tree that's just based around making it do as much more damage as possible in your core rotation, this is going to be very, very reliable. It's not going to be insanely bursty. It's not going to have one-shots, but it's going to be the most reliable talents. And I think it is probably something that will persist through the long haul. As you get more and more stats and your core rotation gets more and more juiced up, you would just really like to run something that gives you an extra mod on every single thing you press. Whew. And that's glaiveweaver. Kind of complicated, actually, which is good. Demon Hunter has no buttons, so I think a complicated mechanic is worth having on Demon Hunter. Okay, so now we're going on to the Demon Hunter class talents, and this is going to be insanely quick, I promise. Because the last one was so much noise, but now you're going to have something like a relaxing palate cleanser kind of deal. These are probably the talents you'll see almost everywhere, except for probably something like this. That's your AoE Fear. that you can use, but it is ground targeted and you have to land it. Kind of like a skill shot, but not really, because you can just do it out of imprison. I made the silly claim last season that you could just play hyper sustain with your AoE Mortal Strike, and you already have stun, imprison, and you just have incredible pressure and unbelievable throughput, and you could just lock people in, and you can play without fear, because it kind of sometimes puts you out of position where you have to like land the fear because it's ground targeted. You have to be over there. Maybe you have to vengeful retreat back and then fel rush forward, and you could have actually just been doing damage that whole time. I made that claim last expansion, and I said I think you could just play like this and get 2400 no problem, and then a lot of people played like that and got 2400 no problem. So either one, absolutely no problem either way. It's a long cooldown if you don't grab the improved Sigil of Misery, so you'll probably have to drop one other talent. But I really like the haste, Felfire Haste, because it just gives you movement speed. And movement speed as the most mobile class just makes you even more difficult to deal with. So super passive, super easy to play around, but feel free to grab the Sigil of Misery. Everything else is like locked in. They're just like core abilities or core mechanics, like your imprison, your AoE stun, your purge, your ranged kick, your charge that also generates fury and can reset from your passive auto attacks. Survivability, meta. From I-Beam, we were talking about this the entire time. You have Darkness, which is a major cooldown. You have Sigil of Flame. We talked about how insanely valuable that was, especially in the fel-scarred line. You have short cooldown meta, which is the most impactful, powerful button of your entire toolkit. You have Hunt, which turns into chaos damage and does a huge amount of burst and then does a huge amount of dot afterwards. You have more Mastery, which talked about how good that was. Shorter cooldown and fel rush, more mobile. Fel Dev is a tank ability. It turns from fire damage into chaos damage. Now it buffs by your chaos damage from any means necessary. And then it also heals you because it's a tank ability, so it actually does a huge chunk of healing and damage. That's all fantastic. A little bit of a wall, a little bit of a self-heal, and then your throw glaive snare. So whenever you press throw glaive to get your blood letting up, it also slows them so you can stay on target. And that's all like locked in. Like almost everybody runs the exact same things here. There's some choices here and there, and these are the choices that I make. They're right there on the screen, and I use them for both builds. So after 25 minutes of straight jabbering about the other stuff, I think I did this one in, 3 minutes? So now we can actually go on to PvP talents. Awesome. We're making progress now. So PvP talents are kind of all over the place. Detainment turns your imprison into an unbreakable. And it also can't be, it's like a clone. It turns your imprison into Cyclone, but on an instant cast, and it extends it by 1 second. That's really good. That's fantastic CC for healer, but you can also use it in cool ways. Like if they put a lot of defensive cooldowns on a low health target, you can imprison them. Now you can't heal them up. The defensives do nothing. And then they come out of the imprison and they're still low health because it says they're immune to damage and healing, right? It's like Cyclone. So Detainment is really cool. It's a skill shot button. You can CC healers. You can CC DPS. You can do whatever you need. Cover of Darkness, when paired with Long Night, is kind of cool because if somebody has a really monster AoE go, you could grab this talent. Where you'd have to drop something. You'd have to drop something like this. So it'd be really difficult to get that. But if it's really imperative, like let's say Frost DK Dragon, and you really want an answer for those monster AoE goes, you could just have Darkness for like the entire thing. There's really nothing they could do as long as you can find a way to get back into it, like Fel Rush and Vengeful Retreat. Make sure you stay in the darkness every time they grip you out or something. Probably a niche pick, but I just wanted to say it because there is a cool play there. Blood Moon I use a lot. AoE Purge, generating a Soul Fragment. We already talked about how insanely good Soul Fragment was for Aldrachi, but it's just good overall because it just generates more healing. But every time you purge, you have a chance of getting a greater soul, which is a 20% damage buff, right? That's the thing where you kill a demon and you get a greater soul. Well, you can't really kill many demons in PvP, except you can get the greater soul from Blood Moon, which is really bizarre PvP talent when you think about it. And I just spam purge all the time trying to fish for that little green soul that gives you a huge damage buff. Furthermore, you have the two that I'm running right now, Reverse Magic, which is a fantastic way to get your healer out of CC, right? If he's in a polymorph, you can reverse it. If he's in a fear, you can reverse it. Watch out for reversing against an Aflock because you might die instantaneously, but you can also reverse Hammer of Justice and a stun. Really, really good. Oh, Reverse Silence from a DK. That's huge because generally there's no answer for stun silence because it's both off DR from each other, but now you can reverse a silence. So fantastic utility here for your healer, but also you can be me and you can reverse you and your melee's roots so you can continue running at a healer. That'd be pretty funny. Okay. Obviously, probably save it for a more impactful CC, but if you have kill and you and your teammate are both rooted, hey, you can reverse both of the Frost Mage roots and now all of a sudden you can play again. That's pretty cool. And then you have Glimpse. Glimpse is extremely good. When you vengeful retreat, you do a little backflip through the air, woohoo! And during that entire duration of that animation, you are immune to CC and you take less damage. So if you are sensing that a go is about to happen from a rogue, like he's running over to you, your healer is in CC, he's running over to you for a kidney, you could just try and vengeful retreat. Or if he just got CC'd and he's getting in range for step kidney, then you could just vengeful retreat and immune it, and then the kidney goes nowhere. You took less damage the entire time, you land, and you are totally fine. You also get double vengeful retreat from aldrachi or reaver if you are playing that. So then you can vengeful retreat and vengeful retreat again, and you just be immune the entire time while taking less damage. It's like a go preventer with a cheat code, because you're just constantly in the air and there's really nothing they can do. Your healer might actually just come out of CC while you're flipping around. So actually really powerful. Glimpse, fantastic PvP talent. Okay. Whew. That was tough. Gear. So thankfully, I did in the first build talk about how I don't like the crit talents because, and I'll rehash it right now. If you go crit in mastery, because mastery is a non-negotiable stat and crit is the other one, and you have verse on all your PvP gear and you need verse anyway, you're missing one stat, haste. And you get all of these impactful globals from if you're running the Glaive Tempest, if you've got double charge of Immo, you've got Hunt, you've got Essence Break, you've got Blade Dance and Annihilation and Throw Glaive, and you've got Sigil Flame, and that's a lot of buttons you have to press. And if you have no haste, you will find yourself with 7 buttons, but you can only press one at a time. And the other ones keep coming back off cooldown and you can't use them. So you have all these buttons, but you're not getting value out of them. You need to smooth out your rotation with haste. I promise. Or this class will not feel fun. To me, that's how I play it. That's what's worked the best for me. So instead, I don't run the crit talents, which means I don't run the crit gear. So I run mastery on every single piece, and when it gives me an option between haste and crit and no mastery, I go haste. Looks like this. Mastery, mastery, mastery ring, haste ring. Haste, mastery, 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 haste, mastery, haste, mastery, mastery. And you can see, no crit at all. A decent amount of haste when it's scaled up. I'll have about 25% verse. And a ton of mastery, giving me movement speed and huge, juicy damage. I also get a lot of haste for my insignia, which is really nice. Insignia is a choice. You have constant sustained damage as Demon Hunter. You don't need a 1 minute go. I don't think you have a 1 minute go. You don't have a 1 minute go. So badge on a 1 minute cooldown is not good as insignia that can proc all the time. And that is effectively all of gearing. It's very much that simple, mastery and haste. If you're not running the crit talents, you don't want crit. If you're running the crit talents, you'd have to make a mastery crit build. You'd have to have 0 haste. You could do that if you want. All you have to do is go down the entire left side of the tree, all the way down through Know Your Enemy to a Fire Inside. And you can make that build. But I hate it, and I wouldn't recommend it. So I can't because this is my YouTube video, so why would I recommend something I hate? So that is effectively all of gearing. When the new season comes out and we have access to Conquest gear, you will probably craft a lot of haste-centric pieces like haste mastery to lower your verse a little bit and get your output stats up, because Demon Hunter already has so many tools for self-healing, and you already have 20-25% verse. You could craft some of that verse down, stay at around 20%, and juice up your haste and mastery to give you crazy output. And what's crazy about Demon Hunter is the more output you do, the more you heal, because it's based on your fire damage that you deal, which is technically chaos damage, and then you're healing also from Shattered Souls, but you're also healing from Leech, and Leech is based on the damage that you do. So the more globals you can press, the more souls you get, the more healing you do. That's haste. The more damage you can do from haste and mastery, the more healing you get from Leech. Bleh. So you will craft haste mastery pieces when the season starts. Of course, you might be confused right now, because it's not here on the screen, because I'm not going to craft any greens right now. But the video will be coming out when the season starts, so look forward to it then. All right, finally, we're talking about rotation. DH rotation kind of works on a priority system. You're not going to have an exact sequence of abilities. You could have an exact sequence of abilities to start up your burst. For example, you can Immo Aura on your way over as a setup global, where you put the Immo Aura around you and start generating Fury. You don't have to wait until you're on top of them to Immo Aura. It's not like it's a burst button. Then you can Fell Blade to them, which generates Fury, allowing for I-Beam, and now you can I-Beam, Blade Dance, Annihilation, Sigil of Flame. So you have that I-beam turns you into meta, gives you a good blade dance and annihilation. Sigil of Flame gives you the mastery. Now you can reset everything with metamorphosis. So you need to use I-beam, blade dance, 1 annihilation, Sigil of Flame all before you meta, so you can get the reset value from the chaotic transformation in fel-scarred. And now you're in meta, and you just reset every ability, and you've got your Sigil of Flame buff out, and you've got all this damage going, and you have tons of fury. Now you have 4 main abilities. You have Glaive Tempest, I-beam again, blade dance again, Sigil of Flame again, and you also have essence break to mod all of that. It's really difficult to ever have an exact rotation, like a sequence of events. Realistically, you'd want to get the Glaive Tempest down, then Sigil of Flame to reset the buff, then Essence Break because it's buffed by the Sigil of Flame Mastery, then a Blade Dance because it's buffed by Essence Break, and then Annihilation because it's buffed by all 3, and that could probably be good. Then you have this rotation of just throw Glaive, 3, 2, 1, throw Glaive, 3, Glaive Tempest is back up, I-beam is back up, right? You just, when I-beam comes back up, you press it. When Blade Dance comes back up, you press it. If you have an I-beam into Essence Break into Blade Dance, you press it like that. If you have an I-beam into Sigil of Flame into Glaive Tempest, you can press it like that, right? You just need to know what the priority is. Sigil of Flame buffs all your other abilities, so you'd like to press it before your big Glaive Tempest Essence Break one-shot. I-beam gets you into meta and reset by metamorphosis, so you cannot just metamorphosis straight in there, because now you're not resetting anything, right? So let's take a look at what that looks like from just a opener perspective, which will be Immo, Fellblade, I-beam, Blade Dance, Annihilation, Sigil of Flame, and then reset everything with meta, and then start trying the priority system, where we just press buttons in that order. Hopefully you can slow it down on YouTube. That's probably something you can do easily, and you can kind of see where these buttons come out. So you precast. You Fellblade, I-beam. Now you can get that Sigil of Flame into glowing. Now you can meta reset everything. Then you can Glaive Tempest, get the buff back up, Essence Break, Blade Dance, Annihilation. That's a good amount of damage, actually. All right, this is working pretty well. Wow. Okay, that's more than I did last time I did this. Oh, that's pretty good. Now you can just kind of see the rotation. Spend a Fury. This comes back up. Use it. Grab Fury back again. Glaive Tempest is up. Use it. You could throw in the Hunt in there. I didn't even Hunt, and I did 1.7 million bursts. That seems pretty good. Blade Dance, and then you can see Immo comes back up. Then I-beam comes back up. Then Sigil of Flame comes back up. Then Blade Dance comes back up. You see, it kind of just, as long as you're always using, that worked super well. I'm very happy with that. As long as you're always using those high priority spells with a cooldown, Glaive Tempest, I-beam, Sigil of Flame, and you're getting them on cooldown before you reset them or just before you do your big go, then you can kind of just do Blade Dance, Annihilation, Annihilation, throw Glaive, Blade Dance, Annihilation, Annihilation, throw Glaive, and when things come back up, you press them. Immo Aura for Fury, I-beam for meta, Sigil of Flame for buff, Glaive Tempest, because it does a huge amount of damage. In fact, we can take a look. Look at all this. Look at all these fantastic sources of damage. There's Inner Demon. Glaive Tempest is a nice burst option. Burning Blades is a hero talent passive. Demonsurge, I promised, would be your top damage, and it is. Man, I'm really happy about Inner Demon being that high. I was pretty high on that whole engine, and now I'm really high on that whole engine. And there you go. It does so much damage in PvP. I played in BGs, top damage. Played in skirmish, top damage. So I'm really happy about this. I know it was a little confusing, but the power of YouTube allows you to go back to parts you didn't understand, or type in comments if you want something clarified, or if you have something you can clarify for everybody, just let me know. You know, there's a lot of new stuff in the game, and if you know something advanced, something clever, just type it in the comments below. We would love to hear from you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. This new season has been so fun, and new expansion. And thanks for all your help, guys, being a YouTuber again. So I'll see you soon. Peace.